Hey, I think I'm live. Hey, everybody, what's happening? All right. Uh, okay, I think I'm up here. All right. Hey, everybody. Good to see you all tonight. I'm going to say this now, and will somebody remind me to say this again before I sign off tonight? Because we only got 12 people here, so I'm sure we're going to get a few more. We're up to 15 already. Hey, guys. A trick or treat here in St. Mary's has been delayed. Apparently, we're supposed to have some like apocalyptic weather tomorrow. So they decided to have a bunch of kids out trick or treating in the middle of an apocalyptic storm was not the thing they wanted to do. So tomorrow they're not doing trick or treat, which obviously we're not doing trunk or treat if they're not having trick or treat. That was a weird sentence, but I think that was right. So tomorrow night we will not be having a trunk or treat. We're delaying that till Saturday because that's when trick or treat was delayed too. So Saturday trick or treat will be from 2 to 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. The bank was nice enough to partner with us to have a bunch of stuff here. So we hope you guys will come out to be a part of trunk or treat, trick or treat. I don't know. Come get some chips. There's like 10 million bags of chips down there that the bank wants to hand out. And I know Cool Hand Luke is going to come and pass out some stuff. And Matt's going to be here and Parker's going to be here to help out. And I've got some Hot Wheels to pass out and some Play-Doh and some things for the kids. So we're going to be here promoting Wayne Street. So if you guys want to come by and trick or treat, that's going to be Saturday from 2 to 3:30. And would love to have all of you come and join that. Please remind me to remind everybody. All right. How about some shout outs? Who are we going to shout out tonight? Of course, Amy Hogshead was our first comment tonight. Congratulations. Hi, Amy. Good to see you. Scott Moran is in the house. Good to see you, buddy. And Teresa Bitters is here. Hi there. Everybody saying hi to Scott. Good. Daryl Lauf. Good to see you, buddy. Teresa Bitters, I got there. Dave Jessen. Hi, Dave. Tell Amy I said hello. Jan Moran says, hello, she needs a chicken recipe, no salt, please. Jan, I'm sorry to break your heart on that. I have no chicken recipes whatsoever. The rumor is I don't care about chicken, but I guess I don't care about chicken because I'm a vegetarian. But I hope that you find a wonderful chicken recipe with no salt. And if anybody can help Jan out, she'd really appreciate it, and so would I. Cool. All right. Hey, Suze. Jan is here. Marge is here. Doug is on his way home. Might be listening in the car. No texting and drive. Doug, no texting and driving. Doug, you just drive because we need you safe and sound. We had an announcement at youth group tonight, Doug, that Sunday school is coming back, and your name was dropped a couple times. So they're getting ready for you on Sunday. Sunday school is going to be coming back. So, Doug, you be careful coming home, and our prayers are going out to you. Let's see here. Who else I got? Hey, Beth Reedy. Good to see you. The Morans will have 400 hot dogs, hot chocolate, and candy. Are you doing that at your house, Jan? And are you doing that on Saturday? I'm just curious, but wow, good for you. Scott, 400 hot dogs. Cool. Tim and Candy are in the house. Welcome, Dickies. Good to see you guys. Cheryl Miller. Hi, Cheryl. Tell Jack I said hello. It's good to see you guys out tonight. And yep, on Saturday. All right. You guys are doing that from your house, Jan, and good for you guys. So, all right. Well, tonight, hope to have a little interaction with you guys tonight over the next few minutes that we're going to be spending together. I read the chapter twice this week. We're on chapter 6. It's called Grace and Truth. And I read it twice because the first time I read it, I thought, but then the second time I read it, I think I enjoyed it a little more. So I think there's some good content in this chapter, and I hope that we can pull off a good conversation. Hey, Ange, good to see you. Scott Moran, 400 hot dogs and 1 veggie dog. Now you're talking. Now you're speaking my language. The Batmobile may be able to come out for something like that. So, all right, very good. So, anyways, this chapter was, my first read through. I don't know, maybe I went into it or whatever. But the second one, I actually think he's got a really good point. Now, I think part of the reason I struggle with this chapter is because, how do I want to say this? I've always been a churchgoer. I have never missed. I've only missed 2 consecutive Sundays being in church one time in my life, and that was my freshman year. I went to a camp, so I was at camp, from Sunday to Sunday. So I missed 2 Sundays. That is literally the only time in my life I've ever missed church 2 Sundays in a row. Even during the quarantine, I was still in service, even though it was online. So I've never been one who's been away from the church. And so I maybe my struggle with this chapter is I've never been where Matthew was, but I thought this chapter was very well articulated, as Max Lucado chapters always are. But any of you who have an experience of being away and coming back, I would absolutely love your comments on this. What was this close? Was this far away? The comments I'm going to be making. Am I on point? Am I missing it? Because again, I don't have the perspective to come from that somebody who's struggled and been away may have. So I would very much appreciate any of you who have had time away from the church and tried to come back, and what that experience was like for you. Because in this chapter, we're talking about the tax collector, Levi or Matthew, depending on which version of the story you read. And he was having a rough time that I thought was very well presented. And it's a perspective I never thought of before about what a struggle it was for Matthew to do this, and what that experience must have been like, and where the challenges came from. I guess I'd never thought through Matthew's story like that. So I thought that was pretty cool how he wrote about that. And any of you who got to read the chapter, even if you didn't, I'm going to write it down for you. So I'll catch you up while we're going through. But I thought it was very well presented, and I enjoyed the perspective of somebody who's been away, coming back. And I think that's something that we don't think about much. A lot of time, and look, this guy here is as guilty as anybody of saying, hey, let's just go out and save the world and get all these people, and we'll bring them back into the church and everything will be hunky-dory. And we forget that sometimes that's a struggle for people, because especially when they're coming from a really bad situation, even in a bad situation, there are certain parts that are at least familiar and perhaps even comfortable. And that's what Matthew experienced, in that he was in this life and doing this stuff, and suddenly he was leaving all that behind. And what a shock to the system that would have been. So not only does he have to worry about rejection from the community he's joining by following Jesus, but he's also got the grief of the community he's leaving by leaving some of his own life behind. And what a struggle that is, and what a struggle that is for many people. So I thought it was a well-written chapter, probably a good reminder for somebody like me who's, obviously I'm paid to be here, so I don't miss I miss no Sundays a year. I have no judgment in that. I'm just saying that's just my life, and how different that is for other people who, have been away or have struggles. And hey, Joyce Cannon, glad to see you. Hard to come back to church after Ed died. I'm sure it was, because church, obviously, one of the things about church that makes church what it is the experience of family. So that was a tremendous change here at Wayne Street for you, Joyce, and it was a change for all of us, but not near the change it was for you. And that's a difficult thing to overcome. And the problem that we run into is often when we run into those seasons of challenge is which are our faith communities, which in our case is Wayne Street. And that's certainly not a time that you want to start backing away from sources of support. But at the same time, it's hard when things change, because, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but people don't like things to change. And especially when the change is difficult. And that's something that Matthew had to deal with. Yes, Matthew, who was away from the church and has been invited back by Jesus himself. Yeah, it's an exciting thing. And I'm sure Matthew was excited about this new life that he was going to step into. But he also had the struggle of the life he was leaving and the unknown of the life he was stepping into. And anytime, like through the death of a family member or a change in job or a change in situation, that can be very difficult. That can be a very difficult corner to turn. And I thought that Max did a wonderful job. I promise we're going to get into it and talk about it. But I think that Max does a great job of just kind of helping us see how grace and truth works during those times. And as long as we hang on to grace and truth, and as long as we hang on to the fact that, God never leaves us, never forsakes us, it brings us through the other side. And I think that's a big help, during some of the more trying times in life, which again, we all get to eventually. So did anybody have any, does anybody have any, what in the heck is this? Does anybody have any preliminary comments? Any of you who've read the chapter want to say anything about it? Teresa, I was away from church for a few years after first being married, then came back when we had kids. That's a very common story. People step away, during their late high school, early college years. And then when they get married and start having a family, that people start to realize they are longing for some of the deeper, more meaningful connections in life. And, anyone who's tried to go find those things in the world realize that church does that better than any place, literally any place else. So anybody enjoy, anybody who read the chapter, and again, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot here, but anybody enjoy the chapter who got to read it? That's Jan. That's a story I hear more often than I wished I would. Jan says we were churchgoers, but left because of political reasons within the church. Yeah. A lot of people say politics and religion don't mix. That's true. But you also have to realize that it was religion that invented politics. The church is the one who invented politics. And you can see that with the Pharisees. And there were a lot of political distraction that were going on with the Pharisees. And that's the stuff that Jesus got the most upset about. Longing for Christian connection is a great way to explain it. Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, and I think so. And I think we all deep down are looking for that. The problem is, and we talked about this a little bit in the sermon last Sunday about when we were talking about rebellion and how disappointment can lead to resentment, and resentment can lead to rebellion. And that's kind of the course that takes. And that can be very difficult to deal with, because especially when we're dealing with God, when we're disappointed with God, upset with God, something happens and we're upset with God about it, which again, look, I've been there. So that part I know. And there was a lot of Sundays that I woke up and I was so mad at God. I'm saying, look, if that church wasn't paying me, I ain't showing up today, because forget this. So I know those feelings. Those feelings I know. And it's difficult, but deep down, what you're basically doing is you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, essentially, as you're saying, I'm angry at God, so I'm going to be distant from God, which compounds the problem, makes it worse. Sue says, it was a little different mixing the now with the past. Took me a little bit to get it. Yeah. Matthew definitely ran into that. And I think that might have been part of what the struggle I was having with this chapter is, the timeline is a little off because it's kind of going back and forth a little bit, but I thought it was on my second read. I think I got it a little clearer, and hopefully while we're talking about it tonight, I can help clear it up for some of y'all who are here. All right. Okay. So, well, let's start at the beginning, because I'm just that creative. Chapter 6, Grace and Truth. And I'm on page 45. Let's start right here at the beginning. Can I not say that word? Combine the greed of an embezzling executive with the presumption of a hokey TV evangelist. Throw in the audacity of an ambulance-chasing lawyer and the cowardice of a drive-by sniper. Stir in a pinch of a pimp's morality, and finish it off with a drug peddler's code of ethics. And what do you have? A first-century tax collector. I don't know what I would add to that. Tax collectors were hated by everybody, and sometimes hated 2 or 3 times over because of who they were. Now we're going to get into to what they were, but my question I would ask about this is, if I were to exempt tax collectors, because I'm still not real sure they're terribly popular today, but if I were to exempt tax collectors, who in our society would we describe in this way? Somebody that universally hated. Can you think of anybody that would be an outcast of society? Can you think of a modern parallel? Because I was kind of thinking about that a little bit after I read this earlier, and I don't know that I came up with a good example. And Scott Moran says lawyers. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can argue with that one. That's lawyers certainly do have a bad reputation. And Anne says she read it and she liked how he presented it. Yeah, I would agree with that. Even though it took me a couple different times reading it, but yeah, I guess there are some lawyers out there who, especially some of these ambulance chasing lawyers, like he talks about, who are making problems for everybody they possibly can. And anybody else got any segment of society, universally hated? Yes, Matt. Some parts of the country hate the police. In fact, we just saw that in Philadelphia last night. And let's the police go out and do their job, and let's go throw things at police officers. I don't get that. So Teresa says evil leaders of countries like Saddam Hussein. Yeah, I think that would be somebody. Yeah, that would be somebody universally hated. Somebody willing to hurt and kill innocent people. Actually, I think Matt and Teresa, those two things, the terrorism angle, I think are pretty close together. In that anybody who's willing to hurt somebody to accomplish, I don't want to say goal because that makes it sound too good, but has something they want to do that they're willing to hurt innocent people to accomplish. I struggle with that, and I think most of us do. Politicians, I mean, we're 6 or 7 days out from an election. Of course, everybody hates/loves politicians right now, and politicians just love all of us. And can these next 7 days go by faster? All right. So I think you guys get the idea. We do have segments of our society today that are not liked. And I have been in a couple of times over my career, the couple of decades I've been doing this, a couple of times where people came into the church and started to get involved and wanted to sit on leadership and things like that, and the church would not accept them. I've seen that, and people who want to turn their life around and whatever, and just end up the church just won't accept them, and that's a very sad reality. Now, one of the things we need to remember, and Max points this out, and I never thought of it before. I'm turning to the next page. He talks about how depending on which version of this that you read, if you read in Mark and Luke's Gospels, this story, the man is called Levi, where in Matthew's Gospel, he's called Matthew. It's the same story, essentially, but it's a different name, which is why the Gospel of Matthew is called Matthew, because it's thought that whoever this Levi was the author of Matthew, which very, very well could be. We don't know. It's just speculation, but it could be. But given the fact that Mark and Luke identify this man as Levi is a title. You'll notice in the Old Testament, one of the 12 tribes of Israel was Levi, and the Levites. Any of you who are good biblical scholars know that those are the priests. That's the priestly tribe, and that's where the priests came from. So one of the things that Max Lucado asks here, which I think is very interesting, is that his parents gave him a priestly name. Did his parents aspire for him to enter the priesthood? And that got me thinking. Think about the world of Matthew and whoever Matthew was. Did he aspire to become a tax collector, to be a turncoat, to be hated by society? I mean, I'm guessing no. Unless he was some kind of sociopath, which he clearly wasn't. But I don't know that he aspired to sell out his own people and to work for the evil Roman Empire and be a sellout, a turncoat, somebody that they hated. This guy had parents and had siblings, probably had wife, kids. He would have been a wealthy man. Now we can certainly dispute how he attained this wealth, but he was a man of means. And you think about the fact that if his name was Levi, his parents may have had aspirations, and perhaps earlier in his life he had aspirations of being something more than just a puppet of the Roman Empire. And that, I guess I should have, but I never thought of it that way before, about how this man who had made mistakes. I mean, certainly he made choices that made him unlikable. Okay, at least give me that, even if you don't want to say mistakes. He had done this thing and sold out his people, and wasn't somebody that everybody, at least the Jewish folks, were super pumped about seeing. And he probably wasn't always that way. Given the fact that we're going to find out a little later in the chapter, given the fact that Matthew was so willing to turn his life around relatively quickly, basically because Jesus said, why don't you leave this behind and follow me? And Matthew's like, done, I'm in. Tells me that this wasn't a spur of the moment decision. He was waiting for a catalyst to leave this garbage life he was leaving behind. And this is something else I've seen, again, a couple times in my career. Somebody who's really gone down the wrong path, really went down the wrong direction, really struggled, made some just awful choices, hurt a lot of people, and they're at the bottom of life, and now it comes the pastor to try to help them make sense of it. And I say, well, we probably need to look for a different way. And they're like, yep, I'm in. And, sometimes that sticks and sometimes it doesn't. But the idea is when you're laying on the bottom of the world, the idea of moving anywhere sounds better than being where you're at. And there's a line from an old Bon Jovi song from back when I was young. It's from Bed of Roses, and it's a song about somebody who's made mistakes and gotten out and had problems and whatever, and has decided they want to get away. And one of the lines in that I've always remembered is, I'm so far from home, every step that I take's on my way home. I think that when you get to that point, it's easy to turn around, because basically any step you take to a different place is better than where you are. And when you hit the bottom of the world, every step you take is on your way home. And that's something that a lot of people have experienced. And I'm so sorry about that. But sometimes the best way to turn a life around is to bounce off the bottom. And I've certainly seen that happen to some people. So Teresa says, maybe Matthew had a wife who pushed him into money rather than morals. I mean, maybe, because Matthew's wife that I'm aware of is not mentioned. So maybe. But if that's the case, for him to one day be captain tax collector and the next day be disciple and leave all that behind, probably would not have built up a happy home life for himself if that was the case. So again, we don't know that, but I think he would have been, had he had a wife who was pushing him into that, he'd have been a little more hesitant to try to take up this new life, because we all know the saying, right? What do we say about our wives? Happy wife, happy life. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I can tell you the unhappy wife leads to unhappy life. I lived that way for a whole bunch of years. So that's so maybe we'd have to speculate, but maybe, but who knows? So, all right. So you got Matthew, who was, having problems, struggling in his life, made some choices he wasn't proud of, even though those choices brought tremendous earthly gain. He's living a comfortable life, but hated by everyone, no relationships or no meaningful relationships. And I kind of hinted at this in what I said before. Max says everybody shunned him. Everybody turned their back on him. Everybody saw him coming and they looked away. Everyone except Jesus. Jesus says, according to Matthew 9:9, why don't you follow me and be my disciple? And here I'll read it to you. This is Matthew 9:9. Follow me and be my disciple, Jesus said to him. So Matthew got up and followed him. That's all it took. That's it. There was no theological explanation. There was no debate. There was no questions. There was no, the disciples putting him in a headlock and giving him a swirly and telling you better come on. There was no tying him to a back of a camel, nothing. All Jesus did was invite the guy. He had literally had the world by the tail. All the money he could ever spend, all the power he could ever want. He was hated by the Romans because he was Jewish. He was hated by the Jews because he worked for the Romans. So he had nothing to lose. He didn't care about none of these people. So he was getting all this money and all this power and all this prestige and all this position for nothing. And he'd gotten so fed up with his own life that the first person who said, let's do something else, Matthew was like, you got it. Walked away. To me, that tells me that Matthew had already decided he was leaving. He just needed a direction, and Jesus provided that. So what I would say to the 23 of you who are logged in here right now, if you are at that place or have been at that place or someday may find yourself at that place where you're so far from home, every step that you take on your way home, when you're there, I want to strongly encourage you to listen to Jesus' invitation, because to accept any invitation at that point and just say, I'm so tired of being here, I'll go anywhere, that could take you in a bad direction. That could take you to a place you don't want to go. But I would listen to your positive invitations. Listen to your uplifting invitations, not just the first person who says something. I would say listen through the noise and get to Jesus, because if you start following whoever wants to say something, you're going to end up, finding out that maybe being so far from home doesn't mean every step's on your way home. And I'm getting a lot of mileage out of a Bon Jovi song tonight. So, hey, Parker, good to see you, buddy. Parker got a new Bible today, and so he's all excited and becoming a Bible scholar in his own right. So, all right. So once Matthew says, "All right, I'm in,"
having trouble connecting to the internet.
Be quiet. So Matthew says, "All right, I'm in," and let's go make it go with this. And so let's go. Two things now have to happen. And any of you, including Joyce Koenig, who was mentioning, after Ed died, she was struggling, and any of you who've ever been in a place where you are making a change, a significant change. I don't mean like, changing your shirt. I mean, you're making it a significant change. New job, a new relationship, a new situation, going to have a baby, all these big changes we make in life. Any of you who've ever gone through that, there are now two things that have to happen. And this is, as true as it is about these things that I said, it's 10 million times more true when you're talking about, I've been living a bad life and now I'm going to live a better life. Two things have to happen. I've already said them. Number one, got to leave the old life behind. Number two, the new life has to accept you. That's two pretty big steps. That's two pretty big hurdles to get over. That's two pretty intimidating goals you have to accomplish. And that can be super scary. So what Max does is Max speculates a little bit here as to what what he's how this may have went. So he talks about how first thing is he's got to leave the old life behind. So he's going in to basically clean out his office. Now, did he have an office? I don't know. I mean, Max is using this as an analogy, but essentially he is stepping away to step into a new place. So the first step is you got to step away. So he says he experiences what many people who try to turn this corner experience, is when he starts to not come around. He's not, when anybody's not there for the drinking party and not there for some of the debaucherous stuff and not there for some of the old parties and get-togethers and rabble rousing and whatever else that we used to do. Not around for that. People start asking questions. Hey, they're Levi, they're Matthew. What's going on? And I like the way Max kind of portrays this, is that Matthew's like, I don't know how to answer this. Because one thing I've noticed about people who are living in sin, basically, and however you want to define that, they feel very guilty when they see somebody trying to get out, and they're going to do something to try to drag that person back in. Somebody jump in the comments and tell me if you've ever seen that before. Oh, hey, Teresa. Wayne Street is my big change. I'm sure Wayne Street was also my big change, too. So jump in the comments and tell me, have you ever experienced or seen, and you don't have to use any names, obviously, but have you ever had an experience or seen anybody who attacked somebody who was trying to change their life for the better? Trying to step away from an old life into a new life, and the people from the old life weren't really so into that idea. You ever seen that? And while you guys are commenting on that, I'm going to comment on Joyce's comment here. But yeah, any of you who have ever seen somebody try to change their life for the better, and the people from their old life didn't want no part of that. Tell me if you've ever seen that. Joyce says, I was never mad at God for Ed's death. Starting a life without him was the hardest thing I ever did, I'm sure. So this chapter was good for me. Yes. I mean, that's exactly what Matthew did. Matthew started a new life. And honestly, for the crowd that he was in, if there was a crowd he was in, whoever they were, probably fellow tax collectors would be my guess, is the only people who'd have him. When Matthew decided to get out of that life, they weren't so into it. And so he was starting a new life for a different reason than you, but it is a lot like a death, because this crowd of people who were probably very affluent, probably very powerful, very influential, also very isolated, didn't exactly have a big a crowd of people, weren't really interested in giving up one of their own. And, we've seen that before, where people, again, trying to get out of a bad situation to step into a better situation, and they find the people from their old life are not so into that idea. And Scott says his family has been in that. Yeah, family members can be the best catalyst of change for the better. They can also be great influence to the negative as well. And they can go both ways depending on how they want that to go. And that can be very dangerous, I guess I'll say, to somebody trying to get them there. Tim Dickey says peer pressure from former friends is why people fall back into things like rehab, fall back into old ways. Everybody give a what up to Tim Dickey. That's exactly what happens. I've seen that so many times. The draw of the old life is hard enough to get away from, but you add guilt and peer pressure to that. It's worse than a tractor beam from Star Wars to try to get away from, and that can be very dangerous. And I'm sure Matthew experienced some of that in a very significant way. Sue says the old life people can get actually jealous of them making a move they were too scared to do. Absolutely, that can happen. You're not going to be better than me. Who you think you are? Exactly. That's exactly what can happen. And I've seen that one happen. And sometimes when somebody's trying to get out of a bad situation, that jealousy of not only not wanting to give you up, but not wanting you to ascend to a higher situation. People have no interest in that. Teresa says misery loves company. Misery does love company. And those people don't like fellow success story. Yeah, I think you and Teresa, I think you and Susan are on the same page on that one. Jan says, we have been searching for a place. Never my dreams that I think Methodist was the way. I am Baptist, but I think Pastor Tim, you're following the Bible. Well, Pastor Tim reads the Bible a lot, and thank you for that, Jan. I trying to navigate what it means to be a follower of Christ in today's day and age and not get yourself just absolutely flamed online and stuff. Not as easy as it used to be. I can tell you that. And I know my friend Matt Dyer, who's in here too, who's been in law enforcement for almost as long as I've been in what I do. He's probably seen a change in how law enforcement goes as well. How people are very, we'll say, not as appreciative about it as they used to be. And anything that is viewed as conservative or trying to conserve values or conserve these important institutions that have sustained the world for so long, the world is just not so into allowing those things to happen, because we want to be progressive, which means we want to progress forward and move away from these things. And now old things become things that hold us back, and we want to go forward. And I just look, I'm all about moving forward and growing and that kind of stuff, but I don't know that we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater in the process. And that concerns me a lot. So, and I see a lot of that going on in the world today. So, it's very interesting. So Matthew was working on getting out of his life, and so and there's a question that Max asks here that he speculates that Matthew may have asked himself, and I'm sure Matthew, if Matthew experienced anything like what he describes here, Matthew probably did ask himself. He's had this great experience of being invited by Jesus. I think all of us would agree that being invited by Jesus is a great honor and a great privilege. So he's had this experience. Now his old life is like, what's going on here, Matthew? What is he supposed to do? And I thought his discussion of what he's supposed to do, what is he supposed to say to these folks? He has seen them ridicule people. He has seen them, not be real happy about people trying to get away. But at the same time, he's a little concerned about inviting them in. Why don't you come with me and find out what this Jesus thing is about, Because I'm reading this quote because I love it. I'm here on page my own 47. Yeah, what can he do? Invite them to meet Jesus? Yeah, right. They like preachers the way sheep like butchers. That's a great line, because this crowd would not be real happy with the pastor showing up. Tell them to tune in to the religious channel on TV. They'd think cotton candy hair is a requirement for following Christ. Yes, cotton candy hair, folks. There it is. All of its thinning glory there. That's what we're talking about. And so Matthew's now caught in this thing where I've had an experience. My old life is not accepting of it. I'm not sure my new life wants anything to do with my old life. And I'm not really sure what this new life is, because it's still kind of a new experience for me. So it's not that I don't want them there. I just don't want one side and the other. I don't want to have a civil war going on here. So what is he supposed to do? And that's a great question. How do you navigate between these two sides, where you got one side who wants you to come and blow up your life with us? You got the other side says, come and change your life, be like us. What do you do in the middle of that? We're gonna talk a little more about that. We're gonna keep going here. He goes to the bar. He settles his account there. He's spending the last of what little money he has left to make sure he's leaving on a good account. And okay, so he's had this experience with his friends, with people he worked with the places he used to go, the stuff he used to do, the high society he was a part of. So he's now okay. So Jesus. Let's review. Jesus said, come and follow me. Matthew was like, woohoo, I'm in. Let's do this. So he goes out to do it. His old life is not as excited about Matthew's new life as Matthew is. So Matthew is struggling through this. So now he's kind of questioning. So now Matthew, after taking care of all this, kind of putting his affairs in order, so to speak, he goes back to talk to Jesus. And Jesus says, Jesus says to Matthew, hey, dude, what's up? And Matthew kind of tells him, it's kind of weird. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to put these two things together. And Matthew says, I'm going to miss them. And he is. I mean, they're people, friends. Obviously they may not have been the best influences in the world, but they were acquaintances and people he cared about. I'm going to miss them. And, he talks about, some of his friends. And so eventually Jesus says, why don't you invite him in? Or why don't we get together? To which Matthew was like, I don't know, Jesus. I mean, he makes this reference a couple times in here. He says, they're kind of Sunday morning where my old life is kind of Saturday night, and those two things don't always go together like they should. And I don't know if they're going to be so much up for a worship service. And Jesus says, well, they probably won't be. Let's have a party. Let's get together and have this party. And Matthew was like, really? Jesus was like, sure, let's do this. Let's get together. You've got this beautiful house and all this stuff. And, invite them over. He says, what do you guys like to do? You like to play games. You like to play sports. Get together and talk, whatever. Let's do it. So Matthew was like, well, okay, then let's do that. So great. So they get the guest list out. Jesus invites the other disciples, and tax collector invites all his tax collector buddies, and they all get together in the house. Now you got two very different crowds happening here. You've got the disciples. Again, not exactly a fine, upstanding group of people. They're fishermen and kind of rough around the edges and whatever. Then you got the crowd of tax collectors, the worst of the worst of the worst, together in the house, and everybody's kind of looking at each other, and in the middle sits Jesus. Passing the hors d'oeuvres, being kind of the life of the party, teaching. Again, he's not doing anything wrong, but he's just in some shady company. And Matthew is probably thinking, this is the greatest thing ever, because now I have a friend to introduce to the people in my life, a friend named Jesus, which is a concept that had never existed before. Friends, go read the Old Testament. Do you want to go invite that God to see sinners? The God who when the priest goes into the Holy of Holies, they have to tie a rope around his waist in case he messes up so they can pull his body out? You don't invite that God to a party, unless you got some kind of death wish. This is a totally new concept. Again, this is one of the dangers of growing up with these stories like we all have. We miss the, oh my word, nature of what's going on here. We miss that. We don't see how shocking this is, that Jesus was willing to go into this place and take his followers into this place and to be seen in this place. This was shady. This was not something that anybody else would have had the guts to do. But Jesus he's right in his element. There are people here. And oh yeah, Tim, you're right. Jesus would have been a radical. What he does here is very radical. Through 2,000 years of Christian teaching, you've seen him as he was a radical. And that's part of what we lose, in that we've all grown up as Christians, or many of us have grown up as Christians. Even those who don't grow up in church still have a concept of Christianity, because our culture at least used to have some Christian influence to it. We get them. But so they have this great moment where they're all sitting there together, and everybody's having a good time when they finally get over themselves a little bit. And then the inevitable happens. And again, Max is not making any of this up. This is all right from the scripture, from the story. And I'm going to give this a little bit of dramatic emphasis here, just because I think the story deserves it. So according to Max, they're about an hour into this party. Okay, so the party's up and going. Everybody's eating. Everybody's having a good time, talking and laughing and slapping each other on the back and all this kind of stuff. And everybody's kind of over themselves now. They loosened up. Everything's good. And dun, 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 the door opens. And Max says, an icy breeze blows in. And everybody goes like that. And who stands at the door but the Pharisees? Now, this is where we find out what's really going on here. The Pharisees are like, what are you doing there, Rabbi? I mean, Matthew's a jerk. We don't care about him. Jesus, you shouldn't be here. And they began to complain to Jesus and going, Peter, James, John, Andrew, what are you guys doing? You know better to be in his house. Eating his food from all his ill-gotten gain. How dare you? How dare you do this? Now, up to this point, Matthew was only concerned about his own friends. That's who he was worried about. And Jesus smoothed all that over. I'd love to meet your friends. And then the religious people showed up. How many times have we seen that happen? Everything was going good. Jesus was interacting with the crowd until the religious people showed up. Max says, just like at the party, they may have had some steaks on the grill. These guys who showed up, they like to grill too. They just didn't grill steaks. They grilled people. And just wanted to know what's going on here. So it says their clerical collars were super tight and, everything there. And they just put ice on the proceedings, we'll just say. Okay. So they really came in and did. And again, this is scriptural. This is exactly how it's presented. In the middle of this party, these religious people had the audacity to come in and be like, how dare you? How dare you do this? Now, Matthew is probably wanting to jump out the nearest window. I mean, it's his house. And, he at first was concerned about introducing Jesus to his friends. Now he's embarrassed that Jesus is in trouble. Again, not that Jesus cared, but they were embarrassed that he was in trouble, that Jesus was at this guy's house. And Jesus was like, these guys don't really bother me. And talks about how Jesus says, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. I've come to call not those who think they're righteous, but to those who know they are sinners and need to repent. Please notice this day, Jesus and Matthew experienced more acceptance from the sinners than they did from the religious people. And if there's a damning part of this lesson tonight, it's that. And how look, I understand we got to have standards. I get it. I feel there are a lot of very important things that need to be conserved as well. I could not possibly agree more with that. The problem is that we run into is when that need to conserve turns into a need to judge. Now, are there things that are wrong that we should not tolerate? Sure. But we can't end up like these guys. Where Matthew was experiencing the acceptance of Christ, Matthew also experienced the rejection of religious people. And that happened right in front of a lot of people who were hanging in the balance, who were struggling on which side of this issue they were going to be on. Were they going to be followers? Were they going to be outsiders? Where was that going to go? And Max goes on to then after painting this very, very vivid mental picture, Max goes on then to say, what do we do when we have relationships with people like Levi or Matthew, depending on which version you read? Max says, Levi is the person with whom you have fundamental disagreements. We all got plenty of those guys. And how appropriate that this is the chapter we happen to be reading, 7 days before the election. This is our world. Are we going to be accepting, and embracing like Jesus? Now, for those of you who are like, what are you saying, Pastor Tim? Should we just allow anybody to do whatever they want? No, I'm going to get to that. But just for this moment here, I want you to realize that it was Jesus who embraced, Jesus who accepted, Jesus who invited, and it was the church people. I'm sorry, it was the religious people who condemned, who put down, who tried to hurt, and we should never be that. Now, all right, I'm going to get to that here in just a second. One of the things that he says here is when he talks about welcoming. when Jesus talks about how we should be welcoming. The word that he uses here is the same word that the Apostle Paul picks up later in the book of Philemon. Now, I know we talked about Philemon in one of our studies a while back. When Paul says, Philemon, you need to welcome Onesimus. It's the same word. What Paul instructed Philemon to do for Onesimus is the same thing that Jesus said, I have done for Levi. Same thing, welcome. And that is clearly a fundamental idea. Now, before you all go get upset with me and start clicking off of here or jump in the comments and trying to tear me apart, let's see how he ends the chapter. And let me read this paragraph. And this is where Max starts talking a little bit about his own story. He says, please note, Jesus didn't accept my behavior. And he was talking about a period in his life where Max was struggling, Max himself. Says, Jesus didn't accept my behavior. He didn't endorse my brawling and troublemaking. He wasn't keen on my self-indulgence and prejudice, my proclivity to boast, manipulate, and exaggerate, the chauvinistic attitude. All that had to go. Please hear that. Welcoming doesn't mean accepting everything that somebody does. Okay? Those are not the same thing. Jesus didn't gloss over the self-centered Max I had manufactured. He didn't accept my sinful behavior. He accepted me, but he wasn't about to accept everything about me. So just because I said, well, this is just how I am, Jesus said, no, that ain't how you are, because we're going to transform that broken part of your life. And I think all too often we misunderstand the concept. We misunderstand the concept of what it means to be welcomed. Friends, you can welcome somebody into your life. You can embrace them into your life and have deep-seated fundamental disagreements with that person. I know this sounds like sacrilege because today, especially in politics, we're all ready to just fight this to the last man. It's not what Jesus did. Jesus did not accept Matthew's debaucherous misconduct. This idea of stealing from people to enrich himself. Jesus said, nah. I'm going to go to your house and be a part of this, but that's got to stop. You can't continue doing this. Jesus gave grace, but he never gave grace separate from truth. The two things, grace and truth, always went together. Never did he give one without the other. Never. And I'm going to go through a whole bunch of examples of that here in just a second. He always gave grace, but it always came with truth. He didn't gloss over them. So he was willing to say, yes, I accept you. However, here's some things that need to change. And I think today that we feel like welcoming means the absence of truth. In order to welcome somebody, you have to remove truth. Meaning, if you say you're the way you are and that's just how it is, then I accept that and that's how I welcome you. Wrong. A couple of weeks ago, you guys probably seen here on my hand, I decided nothing bad had happened to me in like a month, so I stuck my finger in a hedge trimmer. Don't ever do that. So I had to go down to the hospital and I had to get 7 stitches in the end of my finger. Now, if I would have went in and they said, "Oh, Pastor Tim, we're so glad that you're here. Thank you for coming in. It's such an honor and a privilege to have a celebrity of your status come into our emergency room. You have graced this entire hospital by showing up, and we are so happy. We're not going to, give you any shots for pain. We're not going to, give you a tetanus shot. We're not even going to stitch that up because that might hurt. Just let us tie a string around it, and we're just going to send you out of here just because you're the greatest guy ever." I would have been like, thank you for all that, but how about some stitches and an antibiotic shot and a tetanus shot, right? They're not helping my problem. My hand is going to fall off if you don't do something here. I'm going to bleed out because I was gushing blood, right? You got to fix the problem. Yes, be graceful about it, but the truth is I need help. I need this wound taken care of. And too often we think that welcoming people is ignoring their wounds. That is stupid. That is stupid to do. An ER that does that is going to get sued. And I think when it comes to people, yes, we need to be graceful and gracious and loving, most assuredly. But that doesn't mean we ignore the truth. We don't have to ignore the truth to do that. It is crazy to think that we are being loving to people by not trying to help them. That is insanity. So let me give you some examples, and I'm running out of time here. Max gives a beautiful list, so I'm just going to read it straight out, straight from his words. Listen to these. Grace and truth. Grace told the adulterous woman, I do not condemn you. Truth told her, go and sin no more. Grace invited a swindler named Zacchaeus to lunch. Truth prompts him to sell half his belongings and give them to the poor. Grace washed the feet of the disciples. Truth told them, do as I have done to you. Grace invited Peter to climb out of the boat and walk on the sea. Truth upbraided his lack of faith. Grace invited the woman at the well to drink everlasting water. Truth tactfully reminded her that she had gone through 5 husbands and was shacking up with a boyfriend. Jesus was gracious enough to meet Nicodemus at night. He was truthful enough to tell him, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. Jesus shared truth, but graciously. Jesus offered grace, but truthfully. Friends, if you don't get a single other line from this lesson tonight, get that one. Yes, Jesus went to Matthew's house. Yes, Jesus had a celebration. Yes, Jesus told Matthew to bring his friends over. Yes, he brought the disciples. Yes, the Pharisees showed up and were being jerks about the whole thing. But to everybody, Jesus told the truth. Some people needed a different truth. Needed them to be told something different than everyone else needed. What did Matthew need? An invitation. He just needed invited out of his bad situation because he was so done with this that all it took was Jesus to be, hey, Matthew. That's really all it took. Now, to some of Matthew's friends, and obviously to the Pharisees, they needed grace still, but they needed some truth as well. Matthew already knew the truth. He was already 1 foot out of that life. He just needed a direction, and Jesus provided that for him. The Pharisees, did they deserve grace? Yes, but they needed a whole lot more truth because they had not experienced what Matthew had experienced. And that's the problem. That is the problem. We think that Jesus went to Matthew's house and just left him there and thought, thanks for the party. The food was great. Appreciate your effort and whatever, and then just left him go ahead and steal from people. Nope. Jesus told him that this old life has got to go. We are not showing grace unless we tell truth. And I feel like that is a concept that is just very lost today, is that we think that we give grace by ignoring truth or by telling lies or falsehoods or whatever. Friends, it don't work that way. It has never worked that way. It will never work that way. So, yeah, Teresa, Jesus accepts us where we are, but loves us enough not to leave us there. That's right. Again, same way with my finger. If they'd have just, left this wound go and just patted me on the back and told me I was great and hope this thing with my finger works out, I probably wouldn't have that finger today. So we're not doing anybody any favors by not being truthful with them. Now, we must do it with grace, which the Pharisees were probably telling some truth, but they were not doing it gracefully. And that's why Jesus got on them about that. And unfortunately, Tim says, unfortunately, our society sees that as being judgmental. If you don't accept everything about someone, society says we're narrow-minded. And yes, we are. In fact, we are so narrow-minded that we don't want to see people destroy themselves. We don't want to see people live in lies. The problem is those amongst us who so blatantly speak the truth do it with no grace. That's the problem. They have no grace in their delivery. They're shouting at people in public places and other stupidity like that. And that doesn't help our cause at all. Without truth, it's not grace. Without grace, it doesn't matter. And that's an important thing for us to keep in mind. So here's one last line here toward the end. And I guess this might serve as a closing prayer. He says, Jesus found a way to accept the Matthews and the Maxes of the world. Here is hoping he will do the same through you and me. Grace and truth, and I think that's an important thing. So this was a good chapter. I feel like I did all the. I'm sorry to have you guys interact more. I kind of got a roll there for a little bit, but yeah. All right. I need to interact with you guys. I need 2 more minutes. You guys enjoying this book? Yes. Thank you, Amy. Give us a thumbs up. Everybody, give us a like on this video. That does help us with the algorithm. Friend tells you what you want to hear. A true friend tells you what you need to hear. Yep. And that's true. And there's a lot of people out there who just want the grace, but they don't want any truth. And that's not how it works. Grace, here it is. Grace with no truth is pity. And pity is not worth anything. So yeah. All right. Candy and Beth, thank you. Yep. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Scott. Yeah. And so if you guys enjoy this book, we're going to be on this book for a while. We have a lot of chapters left, but I'm enjoying this. And I'm glad to have you guys come out and be a part of that. And thank you, Matt. And that sincerely means a lot coming from you, buddy. I appreciate it. So yeah, fighting the good fight. That's what we do. So, hey, I appreciate you guys. Next week, I haven't read the chapter for next week yet, but is whoever. Yep, whoever. So that's your generic title for next week. I have no idea what it's about, so because I haven't read it yet. So, oh yeah, Joyce, Max Lucado's books. He again, master with the pen. Teresa, still need to get the book. Yeah. Yeah, because we're about a third of the way through it, I think now. Anne's enjoying the book. Good. Glad you are. And all right. So, well, let me make my quick announcement from last week. Trick or treat was supposed to be tomorrow night, but because of some bad weather that's apparently coming up, trick or treat has been moved to Saturday. So, any of you who may want to come by and help us pass out chips and Play-Doh and Hot Wheels and hot chocolate and stuff, we're going to be here from 2 to 3:30 on Saturday, and would love to have any of you who want to come and be a part of that. It'd be awesome to see you. And yes, Marge, thank you. Oh yes, Amy, thank you. Daylight savings time is going to be Sunday, so reset your clock Saturday night. We're gaining an hour, and so get ready for that. Jan says, do you think we as Christians are standing up? Yes, I think we are. I think the only reason I hesitate to say yes is because we get zero credit for it, and we get no support from anywhere. It's not reported in the media or anything. But I think the church has more influence in the world today than what the media wants to give us, because the media, which by the way deals in neither grace nor truth, doesn't want you to know what's going on. They want you to know their slant of what's going on, which is not the truth. It's called opinion, and opinions are what they are. They don't mean anything. So yes, I think we are standing up. I think we see evidence of that in small towns like St. Mary's. I know a lot of these urban centers and stuff, people doing what they can there, but I think the backbone of America is still Christian to the core. And I think that we have a doctrine and a principle and a message that's worth standing up for. And I think people are standing up for that. And I think that we all, we're being a part of that here tonight, being a part of this conversation. When surely there's other stuff on YouTube or other stuff on TV you could have been watching tonight. 24 of you decided to join me here for a conversation on a book. If that's not standing up for Christianity, I don't know what is. So good. Now you're welcome, Teresa. Angie, great riches and Christ expense grace. I'm not sure I followed that, Ange, but yes, I think that I think that there's a price to be paid, and I think that we get to be the beneficiaries of that. So, oh, Cheryl, glad you enjoy. Miriam, more practice and grace. I think that's a practice we all could use a little more work in. Miriam, tell Scott I said hello as well. I know he's always in fact, he reminded me yesterday to make sure I sent out the link. So always appreciate hearing from him, and he always keeps me on my toes. Cheryl says, I think our youth are doing a good job in our town. I think so too. And I think that we're going to be to continue to get to experience that. So, and looking forward to what the future of that will be. So, all right, guys. Hey, I appreciate you all coming to hang out with me here tonight. I appreciate you being a part of this discussion. And yeah, I'm still looking forward to the day when we can have some kind of reunion or something so you all can meet each other. I think that it's funny that, in fact, I don't even know everyone who's here, but I think it's interesting that you guys are all interacting in here, and it's like you're all best friends, yet you've never looked at each other's faces before. And I think that's very interesting. And Miriam, you're very welcome. I always appreciate hearing from Scott, and he always makes sure I don't forget to send these links out. So, all right, guys, I think we've hit the end of the road here tonight. I appreciate you all coming out to be a part of this conversation. And you honor me with your presence, and I certainly do appreciate that. You guys all have a great night. Go get some sleep. Throw an extra blanket on the bed. It's a little chilly out there. And y'all know what you need to go do now. Y'all need to go wash those hands.